We just had a huge sell-off in XRP, but we're already getting indications that this sell-off might be over and the recovery might be right around the corner. In this video, I want to share a couple metrics with you that really show that the bottom might already be in with XRP, and then go over some very bullish things we're seeing on the fundamentals, something that is going to get a lot of people's attention. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange upload down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I want to start out this video and go over a couple quick things on the fundamental side that I think are going to be really important for XRP moving forward. The first one being that Coinbase actually just released their earnings report talking about how much money they made, and not to get into Coinbase's business specifically, but something extremely interesting that we learned is that for the first time pretty much ever, Coinbase actually made more money selling XRP than Ethereum. Now, this was really fueled by more people on Coinbase being interested in purchasing XRP than Ethereum, which I think is going to a general change in how people are looking at the cryptocurrency industry. A couple of weeks ago, I shared a chart that I thought was fascinating, and that was that for the first time ever, we saw more people searching the term XRP than Bitcoin. Now, this is a huge directional shift in how people look at cryptocurrencies in general. For a long time, people really only paid attention to Bitcoin and Ethereum because there wasn't a lot of knowledge about cryptocurrencies. People were simply picking two random things that were the number 1 and 2 and not really doing any research outside of that. But since then, we have seen a huge directional shift. A lot of people are now looking for things that actually solve a problem or have use case or that have a nexus to the United States. The more people have learned about this asset class, the more people have started to build out actual theses for why these assets are going to be important. A lot of people in the early days simply said decentralization and then said, I picked this and this, and came up with some crazy way the world is going to play out where Bitcoin was going to be the only currency that people used. Clearly, that's not the direction the world is headed. It could not be more obvious that the direction the world is headed, fiat currencies are going to be as important than ever before. And we're seeing that because of stablecoins. Right now, in the cryptocurrency world, stablecoins are a huge killer use case for cryptocurrency. But stablecoins are just tokenized version of fiat currencies. So all these people who said fiat currency was going away, the banks were going away, people were only going to use Bitcoin, are being proven wrong in real time. Now, what's so important to understand here is that this didn't really catch Ripple and the people behind the XRP ledger by surprise. They have always saw the future being a world of one which fiat currencies existed. And in fact, the XRP ledger was the first blockchain ever created that had native fiat tokenization, the capability of issuing a fiat currency. Now, this was created because the early people and the creators behind the XRP ledger understood that the world we're heading into is not going to be one where people are paying each other with a volatile cryptocurrency, or where governments are dropping their national currency and choosing to use something like Bitcoin or XRP. That doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, these governments rely on being able to control and issue currency. And some people might not like that, but that's just the way the real world works. As long as the United States is a nation, there's going to be a stable fiat currency associated with that nation. And for the vast majority of people, they would much rather use a stable fiat currency to pay for things than a volatile currency. People who hold Bitcoin don't really like spending their Bitcoin. They want to save it. People who hold XRP don't really want to spend their XRP. They want to save it. And in that same notion, half of my friends, I doubt I could ever get them to understand paying with a Bitcoin or paying with an XRP. They're just going to use a stable currency. So it's obviously clear that the world we're heading into, fiat currencies are still going to be extremely important. But that's how the XRP ledger was set up from the start. While all these other chains were focused on completely disrupting and disintermediating the old system, the XRP ledger was created to create a replica of the old system on better rails, better plumbing, better technology, making the current system and the way it's architected better from a technology perspective. Now, a lot of people see a lot of the stablecoins coming to the market and seeing all these different RLUSD-like products, USDC-like products, and wonder, is this going to disintermediate the use case for XRP? Now, I've talked about this a lot on the channel, but I thought this was an outstanding clip. Once again, it's Ripple forecasting these things in the early days. I want to play you this video of a member of Ripple actually talking about the issuance of fiat currencies on the XRP ledger, because I think it's going to make it abundantly clear that this is not catching anyone by surprise. This was why the XRP ledger was created the way it was. These things were always known. It was always foresaw that these large nations, these large companies are going to be tokenizing their own assets. But it doesn't kill the need for a neutral liquidity bridge asset in the middle. Listen up to this clip. I think it is an outstanding example of Ripple being 100 years ahead of the curve in understanding how this cryptocurrency industry was going to play out. Listen up to this.
There are too many markets for market makers to serve every possible combination of currency pairs. You saw that chart with 1,000 lines going across. The number of combinations goes up exponentially as you add each individual gateway. And so one thing that kind of happens, and this is the same thing that happens in Bitcoin, is that people tend to create markets with XRP, and then with XRP to the destination currency. And also in traditional Forex, that's how it works. Like if you want to convert Swiss francs to Thai baht, you don't, there's no direct market for that. You convert them to dollars or euros or one of the major currencies, and then you convert them on. And that kind of gets rid of this problem where you have to capitalize a huge amount of currency markets and actively trade on all of them.
So I thought that was an outstanding clip of just breaking down how XRP can be used. There was a single slide in there that I think is so important for everyone to understand. In the future, we are going to have so many different issued currencies on the XRP ledger. You're going to have hundreds of versions of the United States dollar. And you're going to need to create liquidity between all these different versions of the United States dollar. XRP sits right in the middle of that. Just because Ripple has RLUSD does not mean the entire world is going to use RLUSD. In fact, many of the banks are going to have their own version of a United States stablecoin. But everyone is going to want to only be using their own stablecoin. No one is going to want to take the counterparty risk on relying on someone else's stablecoin. Therefore, it's impossible for a single stablecoin to disrupt something like XRP, because XRP is a tool that aids the issuance and liquidity between these stablecoins, between these issued assets, between stablecoins and debt, between debt and stocks, between stocks and real estate, between currency and real estate, between currency and currency. All of these different things need liquidity between them. And the world we're heading into is clearly a world with all these different issued assets. Ripple was ahead of the curve. They designed the XRP ledger for this purpose, because they knew it was not going to be a single currency that everyone was going to agree on. That is why stablecoins are good for the XRP ledger. The issuance of fiat currency is exactly what the XRP ledger was created to do. With that said, I want to jump into where XRP stands right now in terms of the price chart, because I actually think we're seeing some pretty good signs of a reversal that everyone should be paying attention to. The first thing is, on the XRP price chart, we can see that after XRP broke out to about the $3.75 range, we've seen XRP pull back. Now, if we take a look at where XRP is pulling back to, it's pulling back to some really good support right here. XRP sell-off seems to be slowing down and really creating a bottom, just retesting this previous support. Really, really good stuff to see right here. Ultimately, XRP went on a huge breakout to the upside, and it's normal to see XRP pull back, regain its momentum before making a next leg higher. This is kind of the last place we have any price action. So it makes sense to see XRP retesting these levels, reconfirming them before making its next leg higher. A lot of people are wondering, is this the top of the bull market or something like that? Guys, the bull markets will not end in fear. And we'll see if the bull markets even end at all and trend at a normal 4-year cycle. But I can tell you, with everyone panicking right now, that's not how these things slow down. Right now, it just looks like a very normal pullback to me, retesting the previous highs. It's actually very good to see XRP holding up and claiming these support levels, and I think it's a really good sign for XRP creating a new foundation to make those higher highs. The other thing that's very interesting is actually looking at the derivatives market. What we're seeing right now is whenever XRP gets to these oversold liquidation regions, a bottom is normally created. The last time we saw a big bottom before XRP blasted up to 375 was here on June 22nd. We went into the red briefly as XRP created its bottom before its next leg higher. What we're seeing is just the other day, we saw another flash on the liquidation levels in the derivatives market, likely calling out exhausted selling. People got liquidated, people were forced to sell, people got shaken out of their positions, and now that a lot of that leverage is fleshed out into the market, we can start making more organic gains to the upside. I always talk about this on the channel, but it's so important to realize that there's a lot of leverage in the cryptocurrency market. And so when you have XRP go on these massive pumps, a lot of people get overexposed to the long side. Because of that, you always end up giving a little back. So whenever XRP goes on these tears, you can kind of expect XRP to have a pullback at some point or another as those super extra ultra leverage longs get flushed out of the market. But that doesn't mean there aren't a ton of new buyers and a ton of new demand on XRP. It's just things getting frothy at the top. Kind of like just filling up a beer. As you kind of fill up too quickly, you get the foam on the top. That gets overblown. It might spill over the top. Eventually that settles back down though. That's essentially what happens on XRP's big moves. And you shouldn't be shaken out by this price action because of how well it's holding up and how much spot inflows we're still continuing to see despite this. During this entire time, whale wallets have only skyrocketed, which means to me that a lot of people got shaken out, but the smart money, the big money, is only accumulating and taking advantage of the weak hands that are being shaken out by this price action. At the end of the day, people who actually understand what's going on look at the fundamentals and realize that the entire financial system is about to change forever. And people being positioned in the projects that are going to be set up to foster this change, work compliantly with the system, in my opinion, are going to be poised to succeed for decades to come. Never been more clear to me that XRP fits perfectly into that position and is going to be one of the biggest winners we see when this is all done shaking out. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. And for now, Mickle out.